ki vai ki tō tātou whare amata waiora. Ka timata pia ki a tā tātou mahi i tēnei rā i te karakia. Mau pia tō tātou karakia e taki.
Kia ora tātou. Tātou katoa. Whaere mai nei ki i runga i te kaupapa wa ora nei i runga i tēnei rā mō tātou mō kora ngā iwi o Waikato me ngā kaunihera. O tō tātou rohe i hui e tātou. No reira e inoi tātou. E pā koe ni rā mātou i inoi nei, mau hei manaki mātou i roto tō mātou hui. Tukuna mai tō koro wai hei awhi i kaupapa kei Kāwhia ki runga i a mātou. E pai ai te haere, e tika ai te haere. No hei mātou i rano i te mana o te tipu. No reira e te atua koe ni rā mātou e tō piko nei. E tono ate nei ki a koe ki o manaki ki o tēnei ki rungi a mātou. No reira e te atua mau e whakamauri te ao, mau e tuku mai ki te whenua e tupu ara ke tupu whakaoti. Tupu whakamau i te kai, tika te ora ki rungi a mātou. Roria ki tō ingoa, ake a. Amen.
Nā koe masa, can we pass this down to Tilly? She remembers her name.
It's like get lost. Tēnā koe John te rangati nau I hana taraki wahi nara mō. He pai a ki a mātou o ngā kaunihera o te rohi ko tai mai I wana nui I koutou. Wai hoki ko te kaupapa whakahira ana nei tātou e hui mai nei. Tēnā koutou. E noi te mihi tia koutou. Thanks for joining. Tēnā koe hoki toria.
Do we have any apologies?
From Mayor Susan O'Regan.
Right. Oh, but we have done with Susan's, Sarah. Just from Mayor Susan.
Mayor Susan.
Kāwhia, there's no other apologies for today's week.
We ought to bury.
We order Barry. No one else? Anyone else? Ask that apologies be received. Accepted. All in favour? No. Kāwhia. So confirmation of the agenda. Has everyone seen the agenda?
No, I haven't.
Is there any other? Can you have one more?
The others. Wait. Jim?
What one?
Oh.
Okay.
Give him a minute.
Oh. We need a couple of minutes to, for those of you who've just seen them, we need a couple of minutes for you to go over. Or ka haere tonu, or we just carry on. Kāwhia, just carry on. So everyone's happy with the agenda. Is there anything? There's no other matters, is there?
Yeah, I'll move the agenda bill.
Okay.
Well, just one question maybe. When do the agendas come out?
We aim to publish them 5 working days before the meeting. That's
And you put them online?
yes, we publish them online and we distribute them to all of the members, and we they distribute to key staff. So if anyone's missing from that
Okay.
group,
No.
if you let me know, I can.
Well, I apologise. I didn't tell my wife to get one off. So it's not your fault. It's my own.
Do you want me to tell Fire Marge then, shall I?
Yeah, got it now. For once. All right, so did you move that? No, you will.
Yeah, I move that we confirm the agenda because we need to do a formal solution.
Can I have a seconder for the agenda, please? Aye, so that was Jamie. Jamie seconded that. Fine. Any disclosures of interest?
I'm a staff member of Waikato District.
Oh, I probably have to do, I just realised, I'm on the hearings panel for the Waitangi District Council review. I probably need to send you that information.
Actually, I should probably declare too that I'm appointed to the hearings for the regional coastal plan as well.
Anyone else have any declarations? No. Right, Kāwhia. Again, looking for someone to move. We need to move that.
Sorry, is that a declaration for
Declaration of
matters of discussion or?
no, just the declaration of interest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So those,
On the minute.
No. This is for the.
if you have any potential conflicts of interest,
Okay.
and it's only if there's additional ones that aren't already listed in the schedule.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that.
I was going to say Dave's the one to roll those questions at. So
Okay, Kāwhia.
Throw away.
So we were just talking about the declarations of interest.
And I can just note those. There's no need to move and second. I can just.
Thank you, Dave.
I probably should note I have to leave at 10 to 11, so my apologies for that.
15. Right. Okay, so moving on, Kāwhia.
yep,
So we're moving on to the progress update. Development of the schedules of the work management agreement. Dedicated. Oh, it's not in there. Okay, right. Over it. Yes, minutes.
Confirmation of the last minute.
Yes. Okay.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I assume that we're taking the minutes as the previous minutes as read. Okay. So can we have confirmation of the minutes? Move. And Mayor Robertson. Favour? Okay, Kāwhia. Where are we next? Now we're at this. Now we're at progress update of Sam? Progress update.
We'll assume that the paper that got sent out has been read, but we'll just go through a couple of points in there around where we're at with the schedule work. So schedule 2, just going one by one, any part-time in there. This is specifically by Nehenehenui, focusing on early engagement and consultation. From our perspective, TNN currently reviewing the Manipoto EMP to ensure engagement processes and current reflect best practices for the JMA. So our key issues right now being inconsistencies, the use, the application and promotion of our EMP by councils. Specific areas where this is a lack of promotion is in the resource consent space and promoting this with applicants. So what we're looking at here is just as it's being developed, a request for an extension to September 2024 versus the March 2024 date that was originally set and passed. To work through some of the key issues. And then the next one, then if there are no, I'm just going to assume if you've got part-time, you'll just throw it out there. Schedule 3 sites of significance. So we're looking for an extension to go out to 2024 in September as well. We're currently reviewing other schedules of similar nature to guide the formation of the schedule. Specific actions that fall out of the schedule could look like a TNN council joint projects to identify Māori sites of significance and set up a process agreements for management protocols. So that's basically one of the challenges we see with Schedule 3 and developing it. So looking for councils to work with us in developing that kind of agreed sites of significant space. Kapai. With our Schedule 4, there was nothing on the first part, but just around outlining the principles of how parties will enter into discussions on the transfer of powers. So this is quite an interesting one, negotiate and formalise our process for the transfer of powers. So for TNM, we wanted to know firstly, what are the powers that can be transferred, and we will then want to determine what we're interested in doing and how that initiate a conversation with the council. So the transfer will need to be a risk assessed as well as the financial implications. So does anyone have any questions around that Schedule 4 and the development of that? It's quite a significant one to change how we do things currently, and it's looking for developing how TNM would work more closely on that space. I'm not trying to push the day on that one, on August 2024. Right, I'm just looking to the wheelhouse back there. Cool. The Schedule 5 is the RMA planning process. So some of the issues we've had in developing and then working through it is process clearly sets out in settlements in JMA. However, the issue is in the process is not being followed, and examples of that is the Freshwater Policy review and the Waikato DC plan changes. Clearly sets out joint working party arrangements to be stood up to discuss and recommend to council matters for 4A and B of the schedule. So just wanting to probably work through some of those issues in the coming period. And then under Schedule 6, we've got establishing and monitoring pages. Enforcement mechanism. So that we're looking for an extension up to September 24 as well. And the issues is the notification of non-complying activities and or unlawful discharge. So there's a lack of information to follow up on investigation processes. When we do inquire, we often don't necessarily get access to or updated information around them. We have examples of consented discharges, but not in terms of what was done, the operational component and how it was reviewed, and then what was the outcome given back to us. So just looking for that clarity, that line of sight. We can give examples, but we don't want to put them out there. Some of them are council related. But just in general, looking for an extension to SEP 24 and also to have greater conversations, I guess, and more clarity on what we do on that one. The other one is the process, including cultural assessment. So we're looking to extend that out to September 24. The workshop with our work group staff to set out a process to address consent applications, currently pulling together example strategies. And then TNN wants to set out expectations on timeframes for receiving consents info and how we expect to receive this. Currently, each council is different and has an ad hoc process. So trying to use the JMA to kind of uniformly create a process for us so that we can deal with our people that way. Not trying to say we don't believe in the resource consenting process, we just would like one. The Schedule 8 Local Government Act process, so we're looking to extend that to December 2024. Schedule is underway with compiling a list of local government act processes to guide thinking. So we just need to know what the processes are in order to prioritise which areas we want to participate in, and then the time frame for delivery requires an extension because of this in order to prioritise our other schedules.
Sorry, Sam, just the 7, I think. Could you just flesh that one out a wee bit? I didn't quite get my head around where you were going there.
Developing consent process, including cultural assessments.
Yeah.
It's more of the fact that each council has a different process, or maybe slightly different processes, timelines, or expectations. Okay. So using the JMA, can we standardise that process? Okay. Because we represent the Rohe o Maniapoto, which intersects with all of the varying councils. You got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think just looking to adopt similar processes where we can with Waikato Regional Council. So if you've all seen, we've got an iris table. It has a description, it has links to the maps. And we usually receive that within 1 to 2 days of the consent application being received from the councils.
Yeah.
Other councils, we have ad hoc processes where we're receiving
emails, sometimes a table, but after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, the time's gone. So just wanting to set up a proper process and across all of our councils so that it's just more efficient to respond to those.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
My experience is that operationally, the difference between how regional council engages and how district council engages, they're talking to two different groups generally, and it's around the consistency of whether it's around environmental areas or infrastructure, where you're talking to the same people to keep the consistency. That's the reason why the importance of having the data and the schedules or schedule. Schedule 2 and Schedule 3. Schedule 3 really is to ensure that we've got the right data and spatially identified so we can identify who the right people to talk to. And obviously, where there are sites of significance, we are definitely talking to the right people, and the consistency between regional and district council remain the same. Not even two different groups having two different discussions. You know what I mean? And the engagement process is really about ensuring that we have early engagement processes, pre-lodgement discussion. Yeah.
Any other part about Schedule 7 or any of the other schedules? Because we're done at the, like, we've just listed some of the areas that we're focusing on and developing out the next part of that JMA, which is the schedules.
And so can we as governors assume that I imagine there's no doubt some challenges. There's probably different councils using different platforms as well, but I can assume that it's sort of on track in terms of getting this to work properly.
Yeah, so just wanting to acknowledge the sub-working group from each of the parties that have been, each of the staff from the parties that have been participating and pulling together the development of these schedules. So we've had a couple of hui. Our priority focus areas are schedules 2, 5, 6 and 7. So it's pretty much around our engagement, how the councils engage with us on those specific RMA plans and the resource areas and also the monitoring and enforcement schedule. And so we've prioritised those 4 schedules and asking for an extension to September.
Yeah.
To do a lot of the groundwork, drafting of those schedules as a sub-working group to then bring them back to the September co-governance hui and present a draft.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah.
No questions on that? No.
So our only request is that
We approve this timeframe range shifts, yeah. So, recommendation for the 3 of them.
I'll follow that.
So page 13 of our agenda is recommendations. And the key one is that number 3, which is just supporting the timeframe extension. So I'm happy to move that. There's no further comment. Who else can second it? Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Page 17, it's what presentation.
You want to read that one out?
Yeah. So next agenda item is page 17. We've got an update from Waikato District Council.
Nā tātou te whare, nei rā te mihi ati o koutou, ko e noho ana ki konei, ko Mahi Paki Tōku Ingoa, ko ai te Executive Manager Māori Partnerships. I'm here in place of the rest of our team, myself and Councillor Tuna. Essentially, the report was taken as read. Is there anything in there that you would like to discuss a little bit further? although I would like to put a little bit of a plug on how well the marae resilience strategy program is going. The feedback from our whānau on the ground has been amazing. Gannon and the team have done amazing work out in the communities, in particular with our marae down in Waikato. Some real good runs on the board, and it comes back to the point that Gannon's mentioned around key point of contact. He is the key point of contact when he goes out and he drives this kaupapa on the ground. They have faith in the mahi that's been delivered, and it brings an extra sense of assurance that the mahi that's being done is aligning to the aims and aspirations to whānau on the ground. So that's the one project that I'd like to kind of give a little bit of a plug to. But if there's anything else, I probably couldn't answer much about the district plan, but I can take some feedback back to the team. Need be.
Yeah, look, I'd like to raise the impact. I don't see anything like that in here, but perhaps it's early days. Whereby I don't see many pine forests on the way in from say Waitama to Tikwiri, but most of the pine forests are all out of the coast. And I think there's some impacts that are being developed by these people. I just wondered who's going to be responsible for those sort of impacts, like wild pigs and deer and everything just running everywhere. I noticed the council is quick to rate foresters for their trees for the damage on the road. What about the damage of these animals that are? I think who's going to? I think we should be discussing some of those things that have an impact on our community, and not only forests, but not only animals. There's weeds now seems to be more prolific in doing so that's a regional council issue. And I know some of these areas of Crown or Dock Estate have returned to Māori. They have to remain as part of the Dock Estate or for the purpose of everybody's benefit to clean air. Who's actually going to be looking after those sort of problems that come upon us today? They didn't do much before. Dock wasn't doing much before, but they were there. We used to see them there, but we don't see anybody looking at some of these problems.
I think the last time in the Waikato District Council, they discussed forestry and carbon crediting was in 2013. So it's coming back onto the table again because it's been a couple of farms that have been bought out on the West Coast that they want to turn into forestry.
Yeah.
So there's no particular policy out there at the moment as to how we deal with that. They get consented like everything else.
Yes, well, I think, it becomes a problem when you get strangers coming out and wandering all over the place. And they also dig up the road when they come out. So they should be paying towards the cost of the roading and things like that too. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Good point, Matua. Well, I can just as an example that's more localised within Ngārua Wāhia in alignment with our whaiau strategy, connected up with the Hakarimata restoration group there around trying to minimise the amount of pests that's in that space. It's early days though, early days in the sense of it's really community driven and driven by some private owners. But one of the key things I did mention to the rōpū around that was ensuring that we actually have mana whenua voice in that, and that it's not done in isolation of mana whenua. But that's one example. I know wearing my other pōtai, assisting in with at Taupiri, we have the issue there with the goats running around. What is it that we can do from a council end to help support the Urupa committee around that critical issue that's facing whānau on an everyday basis. So early days with the Hakarimata Taiao strategy, but interested to hear your feedback from Te Nehenehenui as to how we can support through our Taiao strategy. And like Tremaine, do you connect up more with James that it's more localised for Te Nehenehenui? Because the report itself is more stuff that's happening in Waikato. You know, for Te Nehenehenui, what can we do to help support? As Matua talks about with you know, the pest that's going around in the forests, what is it that we can do to help support along the way? So just piece of information.
Well, I think it's not so much us, but who's responsible for these things? I mean, you're asking whether it'll help us or not. It's whether you should be there doing it.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, I know for a fact is that all through the Taumata Totara area between sort of Waitomo and the coast, we have on an annual basis people going in there and taking care of goats to, you know, maintain our forests in good health every year. And the farm trust that I'm chairman of, we give our body there for them to stay in and maintain. And you know, they've been shooting up to 700-800 goats at a time.
Wow.
For,
awesome.
Yeah, depends on how long they leave it, and they're not, and they're through not only our forest, but they're down Tamarinui and places like that too.
Okay.
So, but I know there's work being done there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wonder what work is being done since the planting of these carbon only blocks, which are quite a few.
Yeah, can we go to Gannon and then after Gannon, Stu will speak.
Yeah, we could choose that. I think from Manipura's perspective, because we've taken the approach to engage with all the councils in our rohe, it's really around ensuring that we have whatever is best practice. Some councils will have better practice than others. We'd like those practices to be adopted, these best practices to be adopted across all of Manipura. And it's not necessarily just for forestry or the wildlife. It's actually for everything. So papa kāinga, social procurement would like to have the best from the councils, whatever the councils can share amongst each other, so we have some consistency. And the approaches are the same when dealing with our kuratai throughout the year. But that's really from our perspective why we're doing all these, getting the consistencies in our terms of references and our schedules.
Okay, thank you, Gannon. That's true.
Yeah, and look, as Gannon sort of alluded to, it's a challenge, not just the Waikato district, and it's not just the Waikato district's areas of responsibility. It's all the district councils and the regional council as well. Some of the carbon forest companies, and I think one's New Zealand Carbon Farming, have actually got quite active pest control programs, and particularly the ones that are supposedly going to transition their pine forests into native forests, and curious to know whether that's going to happen or not. And personally, I'm not so sure that it will, but nonetheless, some of them are being really responsible, and others probably aren't as well. And that whole challenge of regulating where you should or shouldn't or can or can't plant pine trees, it's a real tricky one, because we want farmers to have as much flexibility as they can to make good land use decisions. And if you start putting controls around it, then if a farmer wants to plant either native or pines for the right reasons, we don't want them to have to go and get a resource consent. So it's quite a challenging process, but I do think it's a kaupapa that we should probably have a view on here, so that we can all be on broadly similar pages. The Regional Council, we're about to adopt our long-term plan next week or the week after. We've increased our natural heritage budget from $5.80 to $15, I think, from memory, or $15. And so that's a contestable fund where either individuals or groups can apply for funding to help support pest control projects. And it's across, right, like it's where we fund our 300 odd K for manga tautiri. FYI, the lion's share of that contestable funding has been going into Coromandel, because there's a lot more pest control biodiversity and groups up there. We would dearly love to spread food here, and so if anyone's aware of any projects in the wings or could generate something here, it'd be really neat to share some of that food here in this part of the world. I've tried at different times through articles and things to try and generate some interest. We put a little bit of through a little project behind the Waikato caves here, but there haven't been many. We've got our priority pest control schemes, and I'll be honest, it'd be neat to have those a bit more broader, but and look, being really frank, we are running into some challenges, because some of them, and the one at Hotutu is a really good example, where there's quite a big dock estate next to it, and we rely on a partnership between ourselves and DOC. So DOC have got responsibility, I think, under the Wild Animal Control Act for the likes of deer and pigs and things like that, and the conservation estate, obviously. But we do work with them, and I'm just not sure where it's at the moment, but in the past we've worked jointly with quite big goat control projects on the between here on the west coast right down to Morco. That's generally been quite successful. We are finding a bit more resistance to aerial 1080 use now, which is a little bit concerning, because it's really the only tool we have on some of those really big areas. So just be aware of that and help support that kaupapa when you're out in the community. I had a farmer from Rangitoto approach me at the field days, really understandably hacked off about the explosion in deer numbers. It's becoming a real problem around the country, and even where I farm, Whitehall, just out of Cambridge, we've got mobs of 20 and 30, and we're hitting them on the road in cars as well. And we're kind of perversely exacerbating the problem by all the restoration planting we're doing, because it's creating habitat for them, and the numbers at Whitehall are loaded big time. And but again, trying to get the only real control option for deer is shooting, and my personal view is the Department of Conservation need to get organised and get into some of the aerial control that we used to do in the 70s. But it's probably a bit easier down where I am at Cambridge. It's quite hard because there's a lot of lifestyle blocks, and they think Bambi's cute, but don't want to do anything about it. But I mean, I'm losing 10-20% of my native plantings every year from deer. It's a problem. So.
Yeah, look, I think if it's a problem, we should be talking more about what we do with the problem more than what they do. Where I'm coming from is that these things have been known for quite some time, and yet we continue to do those.
Yeah.
Things. And
look, the fundamental problem, John, is money, and we would dearly at the Regional Council love to increase our pest control operations. I'd love to, but we just simply struggle to get public buy-in to increase our budgets. And look, DOC are in the same scenario, and their biggest problem is the government's got aged care, social welfare care, health care, all competing against that taxpayer fund, you know. But in saying that, I absolutely think we've got a role to keep the pressure on them to make sure that they don't relax.
Yeah,
and they need to hear those messages from us.
Yeah, and I think this is an opportunity to identify where to from here, really, But I'll just hand it over.
And just
Marie.
before we forget too, Kerry's coming in later with the catchment stuff, and it's probably she might have some korero on it as well.
Okay.
So.
Nei rā te mihi atu kia koe, te matua he rawe tō kōrero, because I think that the consent process does have to say when it comes to pine. We've noticed what's happened in Tairāwhiti over the years, of what's happened with multiple pine and then slash and kārane down there. So I think that we do need to keep to that. I think we as a nation need to look a little bit more. I think the waiting for an investment in 30 years to come back to us, who sold us that concept. We are not.
Everybody.
When it comes to marae resilience, I just want to just one partai from me. Is Kathy Shaw doing her mahi down here? Because she's got about 60 something marae in her catchment around marae resilience. She got an award from us, but I actually haven't had the chance to actually ask Mani Pito Marae. And she's been leading the marae resilience program for us at Waikato. They got an award for it. So I'm like, nice. But she was very clear to me that she had married up with a few of our whānau because she was mindful about the way that she engaged with us. So I just was wondering whether there's been any connections with Kathy. And if not, I'd just bring us all together, because I'm seeing your marae resilience strategy, mate, and I'm thinking, wonder if Kathy's because they're wahine pai. All right, ka pai.
Right.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm talking from the point of view of a landowner, and that I live on the land. Many of our maraes don't own any land, but they do have interests in as a community. But a lot of our maraes today, most of our people live in town and they come back to the marae. But in terms of where we are now, I think we can talk about the land. We used to always talk about the harbour before, and the land was well maintained, but now it's getting out of hand, and so is the harbour. So, and I've been one that have been talking to Waikato Regional Council for the last 50 years about different things. So, weeds are another huge problem that I believe that it's, the regional council needs to up its game around that. And I guess, we're at a point where we've got to be upfront about it. It's not a problem anymore. It's, well, it is still a problem, but it's about not the weed's fault anymore. It's our fault for not doing anything, for doing minimal, let's say. I wouldn't say you do nothing, but so I think that's where I'm coming from at this point. And I hate to be back here in another 10 years or here, 2 or 3 years talking about the same thing. And I've been in this game to know that we do keep talking about it generation after generation. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
Robert.
not just supporting Matua there. It did, and I understand for the regional council, it's about funding and that rate to fund. So I guess we've got responsibilities as private owners to look after our own pests, as public owners with DOC to look after the pests, and then in those public places, well, I guess NZTA has responsibilities, should have responsibilities along state highways. But along the rivers, I agree, look, and part of it is perhaps comes back to regional council classifying more things as noxious weeds So Japanese walnuts, you go down the Awakino River, you go down there and see what's happening, taking over. Willows were a problem, it's now Japanese walnuts. So, yeah, I guess, you know, we need to take on responsibility as owners ourselves. Then the regional council's got that funding and the noxious weed definition. I think the permanent forest stuff, there are thousands of hectares in our Waitomo district that are going into permanent forestry right now. And this belief that pine forests will grow up and they'll die over time and natives will come, it won't happen when there's goats and pigs around. So there's also you know, I don't defend New Zealand carbon forests. They need to show us their plans for controlling the thousands of hectares in our rohi around here in terms of pests through that forest land.
So look, good points, John. And just to clarify, we have the regional pest management plan, which classifies pests. Japanese walnuts are a really good example. We can make it a pest that landowners have to control. We've been in really robust discussions with King Country River Care for a year or two now, and they want to do something about it. We've said to them, if they can get a majority of landowners on a particular section of, say, the Awakino, all agreeing to control and potentially eliminate Japanese walnut, we can go through a process which effectively makes Japanese walnut a noxious pest. But we're not keen to do that unless we can get 70–80% of landowners that want to do it, because the cost falls on landowners to control it. And at the moment, we're kind of struggling. And I think get enough people to buy into it. That's a challenge we've got. We can make any pest a noxious pest in the regional pest management plan, but then the onus to control it falls onto landowners, and we have to try and be reasonable with what we put on them. You know, the Department of Conservation is just we've got some good neighbour rules now, but legally they don't have to give effect to our RPMP, which is extremely frustrating. We've got some good neighbour rules now, so where they're potentially impacting another neighbour with infestations, we've got a little bit more horsepower than we used to have, but it's still quite challenging. Yeah. And the regional pest management plan can be reviewed at any time if people feel there's a weed that isn't in there that should be in there. You know, it's both plant and animal pests.
Kāwhia, so do we have actions out of that discussion? It's for noting.
Probably, but we probably just better deal with the Waikato district.
I want to come back to the recommendation.
Receiving the report. I'm happy to move that. In terms of John's one, I mean, we probably need to. I'd love to perhaps agree on some focus areas, John, because it's obviously a pretty broad subject, and we could perhaps have a bit of a think about that before the next hui and what that.
Yeah. Oh, well, all I was thinking of, you know, if there was some way in which we
can
continue to notify or make notice of central government allowing these things to happen. I mean, they're the ones that are pushing the carbon credits.
Oh yeah.
But we are having to wear the issues that emanates from.
Yeah, Kāwhia, can we go to Mali?
I just wonder whether an appropriate action from this particular corridor might be to add the Waikato Regional Pest Management Strategy to Schedule 9 that's under development in Canada. I guess statutory framework which will bring that particular plan to this table when it's going through review.
Then we could easily get Patrick Whaley or someone to come down and give us all a bit of an overview of how it's what it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the.
Just to answer your question about Cassie, yeah, I've had a lot of interaction with her.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
The good part, yeah.
I know a few.
Okay, so just as an action, we're just noting with Mali, and perhaps you and Jermaine can have a conversation to flesh that out a bit more. Please, Kāwhia.
Can I ask one more question? On some landowners that we've dealt with, they want to know about waihi tapu that goes within that forestry space. Can that also be added to? Some concerns through that with these farms that are being sold off what happens to the wai tapu in it. I know it's in your sites of significance. That just relates to this. Kia ora.
Right?
Okay. So,
So in terms of that action for you to have that discussion, this has already been done as well. Ka pai?
so happy to move on to the next agenda item, which is an update on our freshwater policy. And we've now got Peter Wishart in person, who's been on in the past, so welcome, Peter.
Page are we on the?
23.
Page 23.
We have Tracy May online.
Oh, and we've got
Ko Peter Wishart.
online.
Hi, Tracy. Co-chairs, if I may, take the report as read, but I'm happy to give an overview perhaps, and just to cover off some of the main points. So the purpose of the report is just to have a look at the update of what's coming out of Wellington in terms of the coalition government, and just having a covering off just how council's responding to that. And then just a brief update on Plan Change 1 and the Regional Coastal Plan. Perhaps I'll deal with those last two items first because they are quite brief. Plan Change 1, as you may be aware, is sitting with the Environment Court for a determination. That's expected probably in the middle of this year. So we await with interest to see how what the determination is from the panel. In terms of the Waikato Regional Coastal Plan, and one of the co-chairs has already mentioned that he's on the hearing panel. The expectation is hearings will commence probably at the end of this year, in terms of listening to submissions and the cross submissions. Just turning to the issue of what's coming out of Wellington, of course, you're aware of the legislation which is address the freshwater elements of the RFM reform. One of the key ones, of course, is the rebalancing of Te Manaroa to Wai, and just to make it clear that it's going to be replaced, and just looking around how that rebalancing is going to occur. Also, as part of that legislation, the Freshwater Policy review was expected to have a draft plan out by the end of this year. That has now been extended to December 2027. Item 5, I touch on the release of the first tranche of the RM review legislation. That, of course, has already occurred on the 23rd of May. So the Resource Management, Freshwater and Other Matters Amendment Bill, in terms of the freshwater aspects and Te Manaroa to Wai, there is no longer a requirement to address either in terms of a resource consent application or in terms of the determination of the hierarchy of obligations. But in saying that, in terms of the Freshwater Policy Review, regional councils generally are obligated to still incorporate that as part of the process that they have to undertake. If I may just draw your attention to item 13, which is an overview of the RMA reform process that's proposed by the coalition government. We are currently at the bottom of the page. Bill, which is expected, has indeed come out on the 23rd of May. We're expecting a further bill towards the end of this year, which will be more substantive. And of course, in terms of the longer term, with the next 24 to 18 to 24 months, looking for the replacement to the Resource Management Act, which would include the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. I guess one of the key points the government has undertaken that it will honour all treaty settlements, which of course in terms of freshwater and the Waipa and the excuse me, I've got a fog in my throat, and the Waikato catchments is Te Ture Whaimana will remain as the primary direction setting instrument. And in fact, it has also been recognised in the fast track legislation as well. So, of course, we will have an amended National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. We will have Te Ture Whaimana, as
the committee as well, where that is currently undergoing a review process there. Council will be receiving a report on the 25th of this month, which the staff are compiling, and that will be put forward to them for their consideration and decision. The current thinking, and I stress that it is only current thinking, it hasn't been signed off by council yet, is that probably looking for a completion of a draft working plan by the end of 2025. So those are the freshwater provisions of the regional policy statement and the regional plan. And then in all likelihood, a decision to notify for submissions by the end of 2026. So that's just the thinking there. Perhaps I'll just leave it there, co-chairs, and just take any questions that the committee may wish to put to me, or indeed to Tracy.
Thanks, Peter.
You've got something?
Yeah, we've got some comments.
Can you hear okay, Tracy?
Yes, I can, thanks.
Oh, thanks.
Maybe before I start reading my submission, I just want to understand what the Te Mano Te Wai amendments are and how they will be amended without impacting Te Ture Whaimana. Just so there's real clarity between how Te Ture Whaimana gets upheld.
I'm not even going to start to answer that question. I think that's one for the Crown.
Okay.
It is an issue, and I acknowledge that, but just how that's going to work out. I mean, again, if you're having a look at of the Raupatu Act and the Kingitanga Accord and some of the statements that are made therein, I'll just leave that on the table. That's obviously, I think, a discussion that will need to be had.
It's always been Te Nehenehenui's view that we have been willing and happy to work alongside of our Crown participants, assuming they don't touch or broach upon our settlements or the components that are took. So just as a statement in general for our councils, anything that would be deemed to be going against the settlement, upholding the settlement or influencing it in a way that we would consider to be a breach of our treaty settlements agreements or settlement would result immediately in us taking more of a legal process. That being said, and I only put that out there it's more of a weddle to anyone who represents the Crown, I suppose, at this point, how we view these things. Secondly, the key points of issues that we were told, we sent a letter on the 29th of May, so we're just waiting to receive feedback on that as to when that will happen. I'm not sure, so who's running that process? Tracy. In their co-management arrangements is set out in the JMA and in Maniapoto Settlement Acts, as well as other Waikato River iwi settlement legislation, have not been stood up within the Waikato Waipa River catchments for the FPR as initially planned. So these arrangements are crucial for meaningful engagement and direct involvement in the plan development and decision-making process. We don't have clear line of sight on the process to review freshwater components of the Waikato Regional Policy Statement and the Waikato Regional Plan. As matters presently stand, we cannot see how TNN fits into the design of the freshwater policy for the Waikato and the Waipa catchments in the manner consistent with the co-management commitments in our JMA, and also acknowledging that our settlement covers any body of water that goes over, above or under the Rohe o Maniapoto. And for those who are unfamiliar, that goes from Kāwhia to Te Aomotu, Taumaranui to Moko. As a general theme, I'm pretty sure there's some lines and squiggles. We can get into kaupapa with our whānau from Ngāti Hawa, Waikato Tainui, Raukawa and Tukuneko, but hey, we agree to uphold that space. As matters presently stand, we cannot see how that fits into our policy, and council should prioritise implementation of Te Ture Whaimana because it prevails over any of the national policy documents, including NPSFM and therefore Te Mano Te Wai. So if we get rid of that, then by default the NPSFM should also be achieved. So our recommendations is imperative that a joint work party is formed as part of the standing up the co-management arrangements, with the first task being the joint agreement of the process and timeframes for the remainder of the FPR. We'll commit to the necessary internal resourcing to work alongside the council and to stand up the co-management arrangements for the context of the FPR, including with our river iwi to confirm agreement to the establishment of a single JWP and a single co-governance decision-making body, as was in place in PC1. for the purpose of the administration of cost efficiency. Sorry, this is a little bit of, not too much longer. Additionally, but interrelated issues, widespread confusion has arisen between the engagement process that the council has used to inform the FPR process and the engagement process of the Waikato River Authority in respect to the review of Te Ture Whaimana, which is also occurring at a present time. So due to the two engagement processes sharing similar names, Ngā Tira Mātauranga WRC's FW Policy Review Representative Engagement Vehicle and Te Tira Te Mātauranga, which is the engagement vehicle for Te Ture Whaimana Review, the process being led out by the independent consultants who are contracted by both the councils and WRA and the councils enabling the merging of these engaging processes, we recommend that the council takes immediate steps to separate these processes, its FPR process from the WRA process to review Te Ture Whaimana. This is required to maintain the integrity of both review processes and avoid any further confusion. So I guess ultimately we're just saying, please stop trying to assume that they are able to be conflated or that there is alignment. We want clarity and separation between the two steps. So the council takes immediate steps to separate. That'd be great. We appreciate that. And the action is TNN receives the updated paper noting our concerns and recommendations as stipulated in the letter that we sent to WRC on the 29th of May. And we just request a response to that letter as terms of our requests.
Yeah, no, look, thanks, Sam. Acknowledge all that. And I guess, I mean, as you've mentioned a number of things, and certainly the issue of I forget how you termed it now, but the two different processes appearing to have been merged, that wasn't the intention of the authority or the regional council. So, but I guess we can say that there's steps underway to address that. So acknowledge that. I guess for me, and again, acknowledging your concerns are all valid, also like to know, we have been reporting into this committee the process for their freshwater policy review. So keen to understand how we can improve that to ensure that we don't end up in this situation as well, if that makes sense. Yeah, because we have been reporting in, well, I thought we were reporting in quite regularly, but so keen to understand that. But Tracy, have you got anything to add there?
Yeah, kia ora Stu and kia ora Sam, thanks for those comments. Kia ora koutou everyone else. For those who don't know me, and apologies I couldn't be there, I'm Tracy May, the Director of Science Policy and Information here at Waikato Regional Council. Kia ora Gannon. So yeah, thanks Sam, and it has been a challenging couple of years and we have been working I guess closely with staff. We had I guess I would just like to go back to your first point you raised, Sam, around the submissions to many of these bills and the primacy of Te Ture Whaimana. It's probably the second matter that we mention in all of our submissions to the Crown. We've also been pretty forthright with the Crown in terms of making sure they understand that Te Ture Whaimana is the primary direction setting document. So irrespective of what changes they might look to make with the MPS freshwater management, Te Ture Whaimana is our guiding light, full stop. And that's really important from our council's perspective. Also with our submissions, we do circulate those to your teams so that the team can see what our submissions are and, you know, take points from it that might be useful, but at least understand that. And the most recent bill that came out, as Peter said, late May, we've got a submission going to our council next week for their consideration. And the second bullet point that we make, other than looking after our community, our economy and our environment, is Te Ture Whaimana. So I just want to give you confidence that it is always front and centre. In regard to the freshwater policy review, I mean, we previously had signals from iwi, you know, we know you had a busy last 2.5 years. We had reached out a couple of times and looked to set something up, but no time was really the right time. We had a meeting with a couple of iwi representatives in January, just the end of January, saying, hey, it's time to make this thing happen. And we had a hui with staff on, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd of May. We are really keen to put something together. We will be responding to the letter. I know our Chief Executive Chris and Pamela, our chair, are very keen to come out and meet with the iwi either individually or collectively. But we are going to look to schedule a meeting to work with your staff to understand more about the nuts and bolts of what we can do. I was around with Te Rōpū Hautu in the Healthy Rivers Waiora Committee from the start with Healthy Rivers Waiora Plan Change. So I've seen the good things and the things that we need to do better. And we've had some really good feedback from iwi in that regard. So we hear you. We thank you for your letter and we hear you, and we're really keen to work forward and definitely within the frame of meeting our JMA responsibilities. And that should happen in the next month. Sam, there will be some actions that start to occur. We're really excited about it.
Oh, I appreciate the feedback, and maybe back to your question originally, Stu, is just having the ability to create take a little widespread confusion, remove that, and kind of get down to resetting the process. We're willing to work with River Iwi and the council to set up the co-management arrangements. And obviously we're not here to be recalcitrant or obfuscate the directional pathway of the Waikato Regional Council or ourselves. We are very focused on progress, innovation, what lifts and shifts the iwi, lifts and shifts the entire rohe. So we're all about the development and progress of rohe o Maniapoto. But we have an inherent responsibility to look after our taiao. And with current manoeuvres, you know, it's just feeling like some of those things have been restricted to us or maybe clouded. So we just really want to make a position stance that we look at this JMA as our opportunity to work with our whānau that live within the rohe o Maniapoto. And we really encourage everyone to come to the table in this space and help us devise the most collaborative way forward, because what's good for the rohe o Maniapoto will be good for all participants and whānau that live within it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely look at that. And as Tracy said, we came to put the thing on the road.
Yes. Can I just comment and just comment in relation to what were you saying, Tracy, that you've tried to engage, or that there's been opportunities that have been missed because of capacity issues. Actually, often when it's put in that sort of frame, the frame looks like iwi are the problem.
Oh, that's definitely not what I was doing.
That's probably not what, but often that's how it gets read. And I just want to be clear in this forum, the problem is not iwi, the problem is a capacity issue to be able to address whatever's coming from all of the councils.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Totally understand that, Wikatori, and you know, we think ours is the most important, but we understand you've got a bunch of councils, you've got everything going on in government, and also our time frame is our time frame. It's not exactly as Sam said, the time frame that'll get the best collaborative response. So that's why we're keen to have those ongoing conversations. I do just want to reiterate what co-chair Stu said in regard to there is a perception of the splicing of the Te Ture 5-minute review and the freshwater review. That wasn't our intent. We were trying to be efficient. Unfortunately, in trying to be efficient, we've created confusion. So as Stu said, we'll be unhooking that and definitely making sure the processes are separate.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a learning curve for everybody in that we can't assume, you know, especially when it's in a relationship between iwi and individual iwi and all of the iwi in council, we shouldn't assume that this is the right way because it happened that way. And, I think you have to check in every single time, and not just by email or
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
No, thanks, Tracy.
So
Any further trouble on put it on this one?
I thought in a sense the game of the this process that's going on is has integrity.
Right.
And you know, I used to be on the already at one stage many years ago. Any changes?
In terms of water quality,
Water quality or the integrity or? I mean, there wasn't much of an integrity at the time, but it's mainly around dairy farmers.
yeah, look, you recall that there's 4 contaminants that were identified through the PQ1 process. Sediment, phosphorus, E. coli, and nitrogen. Those first 3 are relatively, I shouldn't use the term easy because it's been a bit flippant, but relatively easy to see improvements in with riparian planting and improvements in farm management. And there are certain areas where we've had good runs on the board with restoration planting where we're seeing improvements. Nitrogen is a huge lag time, as you recall, and even if we took all of the cows out of the upper Waikato catchment tomorrow, we could still not see water quality improvements for 40 or 50 years, unfortunately. And it's always quite challenging to accept that, but look, it is what it is. I think the authority has made big gains since the very early days in how we allocate funding, and that's always really challenging as well. We've got a new CE starting at the River Authority in a month's time, Antoine Coffin, and we're looking to sort of reset the dial and sort of refresh our strategy and how we can be more effective with what is actually, even up at $210 million seems like a lot of money. It's actually a very small amount of money in the context of what needs to be done. You know, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think, you know, the mana of the way is always going to be the top. And I don't know what amendments you can make to the integrity of water. There shouldn't be any, but anyway, that's okay.
But you're talking in terms of the review of the
review, yeah. Well, that's not a review. That's an amendment.
Well,
and then we also got the ture whaimana.
Yeah, the review may result in amendments. Look, absolutely agree, John. I mean, they're pretty. They are ambitious, but quite appropriate aspirations. I think from memory, Julian has mentioned there's some opportunities around some of the way in which urban developments are managed and that sort of thing to improve things. But in terms of the vision and strategy itself and how it applies, I tend to agree with you. Yeah. But we felt it appropriate to take this opportunity to do a review and just make sure it was still fit for purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I'll be honest. The time it's taken from PC1 to get from its initial beginnings to where we are slowly grinding through the Environment Court. One of the real downsides of that, we had a lot of buy-in from the ag sector when we notified it, 7 years ago. We've unfortunately lost a lot of that political capital, and this current coalition has not helped that in any way, shape, or form. So we've got a bit of a challenge on our hands to try and get farmers back in the game, you know.
Okay, and just to answer that, Sue, is it the legal strength of Te Ture Whaimana? If it was ever going to be reviewed or amended, it would have to be better than what it is now.
Yeah, I can understand. And it'll be a review of the ture. Well, that is the law pertaining to water. That can be changed to make things better, but you know, to amend. But I'm just wondering how you can amend the integrity of water. There's only one integrity, and that is the best. Yeah. So I mean, I think we all know this. But if it's, you know,
I think the mātauranga in the science have been argued. You know, that's what's going to drive what operationally we do. Yeah, you may get you know, changes in legislation and policy settings, but the science will stay the same. Mātauranga will stay the same, and that's what will inform what we do. That's the reality of it.
But, you know, I just going back on to the authority, it was all best guess then, best guess in those days. And we were talking maybe 90 to 100 years. But there's several years been passed now, and what a little small gain we've made, if we have made any, and you're not sure. As if we can't divide what or multiply what little gain we got to understand just where it's going to, how long it's going to take at the present rate of improvement.
I do not disagree with you.
Mm-hmm. So I mean that's all it is. I mean I'm the people that you're working to satisfy. So I can't go back to tell them, well, we're making any small gains at the moment. I think it's a good idea if we can get some small gains and look and let people do their own sums around. Is our money worth putting in there?
Look, don't underestimate the legislative horsepower of Te Ture Whaimana, because we're effectively taking the ag sector from an environment where there were zero regulations apart from a few rules around point source effluent disposal to quite a regulated environment, and that's always going to be the hardest part of the journey, you know.
I think the challenge, though, just from my perspective, Te Ture Whaimana is the backstop for us. So I would never want to open it up to assess it, because if we lost any ground in any way, it would be a negative. Even though, to your point, Gannon, it needs to be stronger. But the other part is Te Ture Whaimana specific to a couple of iwi. Te Mana o Te Wai was meant to be a protection for those that didn't have Te Ture Whaimana connected. So we can sit safe within our settlement, acknowledging Te Ture Whaimana connects us through to the Waikato agreements. But what we can't do is guarantee our whānau who don't have Te Ture Whaimana, who whakapapa back to us, who have hononga with us, that we are to look after. Like I do ask the question, does Ngāti Hawa have a Te Ture Whaimana? They still share the waterways and pathways, but they'll be under Te Mana o Te Wai, which is going to be gutted. So yes, we're safe. We have this one thing, and that's not necessarily a safe thing, but I definitely don't want that going nowhere. So for me, the stronger relationship we have with our 5 councils through this JMA, the better we can be collaborative in our approach to the way we treat wai, our taiao. So that way we don't need to use words like Te Ture Whaimana as our backstop. It should just be the way we are paitiaki of the rohe o Maniapoto. So that's why I love the JMA concept, because even though we've got these official councils and we've got governments out there, that they don't have to have an influence if we determine our own.
Yeah, and I guess with the only comment I'll make with that was Te Ture Whaimana and having assessing its efficacy. Actually, it's right across the board. It's not just in projects; it's also in people engagement. It's also in whānau and marae and their engagement on the ground. It's also in the relationships that are occurring and have improved between councils and iwi and marae and mana whenua. And so actually that's a great project.
Well, I think, there's a review going on in terms of the Te Ture Whaimana, and I'm interested in that. But it also says here that the bill was in development for the Mana o Te Wai amendments. It was developed and expected in May.
No, where are we? Or do you know, Peter, where are we sitting with the?
Well, we have the bill which came out on the 23rd of May.
Yeah.
That's the Freshwater and Other Matters Bill. In terms of freshwater, that's removes the obligation of applicants for resource consents to have to address the obligations, the hierarchy of obligations, but it also removes the obligation of consent agencies to take into account the hierarchy of obligations. So Te Mana Te Wai, I guess, has been, pardon the pun, has been watered down quite considerably.
Gutted is what I use.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the part I think you shouldn't touch. Shouldn't be touching them one other way.
But that's a ground process. Hearing submissions, I guess, from various organisations.
Koinei tā taua reitaki mo te kaupapa i nei ata. We are focused on Te Ture Whaimana as our protecting kaupapa. Because Te Mana o Te Wai has effectively been had its fangs removed, and now we've just got to figure out. That's why I employ our councils to understand and join us on the pathway to just creating our own aukati for our area, and we can determine our own way that we wish to proceed, and we can govern effectively through management that way. And we have great people at the table.
Because it's a Crown process, but I understand that the team is going to be submitting on that. Anyway, okay, so I'm just wanting to bring us back to the resolution.
Off my soapbox.
Bring us back to the resolution and just the changes in there. And so that is that, you've got it up there? Right. So that the report update on Freshwater Policy Work Programme by 2024 to Nehenehenui Co-Governance Forum, 18 June, be received. And that the Nehenehenui Co-Governance Forum receives the update page noting the concerns and recommendations stipulated in the letter sent to Waikato Regional Council on the 28th and request a response to the letter.
And look, I think we're happy to say that Tracy has regional council has acknowledged a response will be provided, and I forget what time frame, but just say due course or something, but happy with that. Yeah.
So anybody like to move that?
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. Yes. Yeah, happy for you to put on that date that a response will be
John Cutty, yeah.
The regional council has provided an assurance that a response will be provided in due course.
What's that?
The regional council has confirmed that a response will be provided in due course.
Kerry, where's Kerry?
Yeah.
Are all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Ka pai. And so we'll hand it over to you, Kerry. No mai haere mai, no mai hoki mai ki Kerry. Nice to see you. Hey, Kerry.
Nice to see you too. There's a whole lot of familiar, friendly faces there for me. I won't have time to even go into the connections there. Gannon.
Well, how's Dad?
Yeah, Dad's good. He's probably in the bush, I think, at the moment. Yeah.
Hunting pigs, no doubt.
He's hunting deer. Tēnā koutou, thanks for having me here today. I'm aware that we are over time, and so through the co-chairs we can either take the paper as having been read and just take questions, or I can talk to it. I have a presentation, but I'm by no means wedded to having to present that, so I'll just leave it up to the committee.
I'm just saying I'm probably a bit more aware of this than the rest of the hui, so would people like Kerry to give a bit of a overview? Yep, the answer is yes, please, Kerry. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Does your presentation cover it though?
Yes, I think so. My presentation was essentially just covering, in case people hadn't had time to fully digest the paper, that I could verbally.
Then I think let's just go straight to your presentation, Kerry.
Okay, I'll just share my screen then. Can everybody see that?
Okay.
Okay, just start that. Okay, so the intent of the presentation is just to give an update on the development of the Kāwhia Catchment Management Plan. It has been quite an ongoing process, and so we were aware that it had probably been a while since this committee had an update on how it was progressing. So essentially the development of the plan came about through an action in the West Coast Zone Plan, which is the overriding integrated catchment management document for regional council. And that was written in 2016. So back then there was a priority to develop catchment plans for the 3 West Coast harbours in order to focus our catchment efforts in these sensitive receiving environments. The project kicked off in 2019, but was significantly delayed by COVID and also vacancies in the catchment role. So the engagement started in 2019, early 2020, and then COVID hit. We had to go to more of a remote engagement method. And then 2 people who were in the role of the plan development have since left. And so I've just picked it up in these last few months. So just acknowledging what I'm talking about here today. is a lot of has been done by others rather than myself. So I don't want to take credit for that. Just in terms of where the catchment management plan sits, they're a non-statutory document sitting underneath that sort of higher level zone plan, but they're strongly informed by a number of policy directives at national, regional and local level. But they're voluntary in terms of implementation. They're an opportunity for council and iwi and communities to work together to identify what we want, or what communities want that local area to look like in the next 10 to 50 years, and then for us to develop actions to try and work towards achieving that. So the development of the Kāwhia plan happened concurrently with the other two harbour plans. There were 3 phases that happened back and forth. They weren't in any sort of order, but helped to inform the goals and actions within the plan. So there was the engagement phase, which involved quite a large number of workshops and hui surveys, where we worked with iwi and communities to identify concerns, aspirations and desired actions for Kāwhia Harbour and the catchment. There's a lot of existing plans and policies, a lot of work being done already that we wanted to acknowledge and honour, including that particularly the iwi environmental management plans that Maniapoto, Waikato, Tainui and Ngāti Hikairo have for the catchment, and various other stakeholder plans and policies that we drew goals and actions from. And then Waikato Regional Council holds a lot of information about, not as much as we might like, but about the state of the catchment. And so we pulled from that to look at threats and issues. And that helped us develop goals, which were then signed off by our councillors, and then actions underneath those goals. So the engagement, as I said, involved a number of hui workshops with rural landowners, with iwi, with stakeholders separately and together. We held drop-in days in communities. We did a mail-out survey to all property holders within the catchment that they were able to send back to us either online or manually. Went to community board meetings, presented to taiao forums, and had stands at community events like the Kāwhia Kai Festival there. And that was to really get a sense of what the community wanted to see happen and what iwi wanted to see happen in the catchment. Not a lot of surprises, I guess, for the people at this table around what came through as issues and concerns: sedimentation, loss of biodiversity, water quality. In Kāwhia, the mangroves came through strongly, and the health of the kaimoana as a result of mangroves and discharges to the harbour, but also access to information on that regional council holds on the current state. One of the themes we got back was that it's hard to know, exactly where we want to aim for if we don't know what the current state is. So access to information was another concern. So as a direct result of that concern, we put together this report, which is Kāwhia Catchment Management Plan Supporting Information. It's a summary of all the information that council holds on the condition of the catchment. That has been provided to Te Nehenehenui staff in various iterations over the last couple of years, and it's due to be published shortly. So the plan itself, there's 4 key areas that came through as areas for focus: water quality, land and its use, people and communities, biodiversity and biosecurity, with an overall theme of people wanting to see more working together, more iwi-led projects, more inclusion of Mātauranga Māori within the way that we're working. And so the goals and actions are around those 4 areas. The plan itself has some background information. It outlines the concerns and aspirations, and then it has the implementation plan, which has goals, the actions, who's undertaking them, by when, and the performance measures. So once we drafted the plans, we met again with iwi authority staff, provided draft actions for feedback. We held a joint workshop with the Freshwater Policy review team in Kāwhia, drop-in day for people to come and give feedback. We also met with Te Taiao Kāwhia Moana to get their input into it. And then we've met, had 2 hui with Te Whare ki ngā Taiao Kāwhia as well. To be honest, we would have really liked to have had more input and Te Nehenehenui staff would have liked us to have more time to have input from Te Wharekinga Tai o Kāwhia, but we've met recently and found a way forward for that, which hopefully is going to work well. So some of the feedback, still some issues being raised that are out of scope for this particular plan because they're more regulatory around discharges and development in the harbour catchment. Waikato Tainui would like to see us engage more closely at a hapu level post their settlement. So we've incorporated this as an action in terms of working more closely with hapu on identifying priority projects. Our Tauranga Whenua team reviewed the plan and recommended we sort of take that as a more formal step and form an iwi advisory group for Kāwhia that can undertake further plan review, further development of actions and other engagement on that we've identified as actions in the plan. And then Te Nehenehenui staff and Te Wharekinga Tai o Kāwhia representatives supported the plans on the condition that this iwi advisory group is formed. We've got that as one of the first actions in the plan to be formed before Christmas with a review of actions in the following 12 months. And also on the condition that Te Nehenehenui staff had also had a chance to review the plan at a final time, which Alethea kindly did for us at the end of May. So the actions are really specific and measurable, much more so than what you'd see in a zone plan. We've got actions across those key areas. And some of the key things that came through from iwi engagement was just more partnership projects at a hapu marae level, more working with owners and managers of multiple Māori-owned land trusts, particularly around hill country erosion and farm planning. Iwi input into our best practice around soil conservation and plantings, identification of river erosion susceptible areas, the establishment of the iwi advisory group, annual meetings of key stakeholders, iwi and council, around sort of forward planning of projects and potential partnership funding opportunities. And then a iwi review of biodiversity priority areas and partnership projects, including areas identified in Ngā Repo or Kāwhia report for wetlands. So we got really valuable feedback through that engagement process, and hopefully it's a plan that everyone is going to find useful, both in terms of working with council, but even for opportunities for funding projects associated with the plan, but led by others as well. So the plan is going to our council's Integrated Catchment Management Committee on 2 days, I think, for consideration and hopefully approval. The specific actions proposed for the next 3 years already have funding through our draft LTP, as well as some external funding we've had through central government. We've identified key measures for reporting, and we're proposing that we have that ongoing dialogue with the iwi advisory group on progress, but also annually report through our Integrated Catchment Management Committee and the co-governance committees on progress against achieving the plans. So just, welcome any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kerry. There was an awesome presentation. We had a discussion earlier in our meeting in regards to some of the issues that you've raised that has been identified in the Integrated Catchment Management Plan. But what I've seen from the presentation is that obviously when you get down into the work streams or the implementation part of it, you can leverage from utilising the Integrated Management Catchment Plan to apply for funding, for further funding. But you obviously work with other agencies to identify within the catchment what everyone else is doing. Is that correct? You also one slide there with Department of Conservation, and was NZTA part of that too?
It's just was quite a broad stakeholder group. Yeah, so essentially to be a bit more proactive about what everyone else is doing, what the opportunities are for joint, for collaborating on pieces of work and for potentially jointly applying for funding for joint projects. So we would invite those stakeholders to be involved. There's no, as I say, it's non-regulatory plan, so there's no onus on them to have to. But given how engaged they were in the process, we think that there'll be enthusiasm to do that.
So you use all it's data informed. You get stakeholder input, iwi input, and you provide that in your document. But as a tool, as a collaborative tool, it's actually quite powerful in regards to seeking or leveraging opportunities to get fundings from other key agencies to help implement your work streams. And I think that's actually a key for me. It's a key approach for, I think, across the whole of Maniapoto. Yeah, for Ngā Wai or Maniapoto is a starting point. Integrated management is the way that you've approached it, I think, is a good model for us to actually learn from to take across our rohe, and how you've established relationships with kuratou. That's key for us. We want those operational relationships directly with our whānau and participating in the outcomes and in the aspirations of what they want to see happen in their rohe. So thank you very much for that. I think that's a key sort of consideration for us going forwards. Once we've done our terms of reference, is actually turn our minds to integrated catchment management as a focal point where we can kotahi ai te whakaaro on how we can make te Nehenehenui start working better together.
Ka pai.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Gannon.
We've got a question.
Through you, co-chairs. Kia ora, Kerry. Ko Tanya Winter tōku ingoa, and I'm from Otorohanga District Council. So great to see this on the agenda. I had a good read last night. So I'm not sure if you're aware, we've just about to complete the Kāwhia, Aotea, Ōparo concept plans. So special plans for those areas. So I'm really keen to see how we can dovetail some of the actions that have come out of this alongside some of the things that have come out of the concept plans process, because there are some similarities and some crossovers, and council have put aside funding for the next 3 years in our long-term plan to actually implement the concept plans. So it could be, there's a co-funding kind of, opportunity here to work, between us to achieve some of the goals that are in there. So just wanted to put that on the table.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And we did, so we are aware of that. And I think through Te Taia or Kāwhia Moana, there's Otorohanga representation on that. So that had been raised. And Paul Smith, who's the West Coast Zone Manager, is online at the moment. So he will have noted that and follow up with you on that one.
Ka pai. So sorry, just a question from me. Hi, Kerry, just a question from me. So we're sitting at this table and we've done a few points around agenda and capacity and capability. And when I listen, lots of ownership around committees in terms of the strategies going forward and engagement with mana whenua and iwi. But we don't have the capacity, or it has been said at this table this morning that there is no capacity within those sections of those committees going forward. So how are we, for me, how are we going to fix that? Because that's one of the biggest things. I listened to Uncle John and all these kōrero, and some of the stuff we are, or what is happening is because we're not at home on our whenua, looking after our taiao. We're here doing this stuff, trying to build strategies to govern the problems that we make as human beings. So again, just the question is how are we going to build that capacity within our people to sit at this table to be able to drive some of those kaupapa?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And just through the co-chairs, that's something that we took feedback from the iwi authority staff and also our tauranga whenua is ensuring that we have a mechanism that that people can have the capacity to be involved, and that's through this iwi advisory group. And so our proposal is that work is paid through our Kaupapa Māori Services program, so that we are able to provide that opportunity to be involved and build that capacity, build our capacity, ensuring that the right people are in the room and that people are appropriately remunerated for that work that they're doing. So we've got our internal budget set aside for that, and in discussions with the Te Wharekinga Tai Kāwhia, there's some people that are interested to be involved on that advisory group, and in discussions with Glenn, he's keen to support that. Similarly with Waikato Tainui. So Ngāti Hakairo, we haven't approached them at this stage, but yeah, it's coming together behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, look, I've got one or two things around about the coastal plan. How long do you think you're going to be funding fencing of rivers and things? Is that an ongoing, or have you? I made a point to a phone call I got from the regional council about many of the fences that I know are now hanging in the middle of the rivers. Are you going to continue with that? Because a lot of these fundings are thousands of dollars are now worthless, and then 90% of the land around the Kāwhia Harbour, a Māori land, where all these, now we talk about slash from other places, half bits of fences, and they all end up down on Maori land, which is closest to the harbour. And these fences don't work anymore. So I just wondered, well, and we all contribute towards those the stake that they use to build these fences. Is there going to be any more of these fences that are continuing at in the Kāwhia Harbour? Because in my opinion, they're not working. Many of them are not working. I see they work very well around the Waikato River and many other rivers that have a good flat land, but most of the country around the Kāwhia Harbour are all steep land. So
yeah, no, so just
wondered whether your plan is going to continue to be a bad plan as far as I'm concerned.
So yeah, thank you for that. We did get that feedback through engagement as well. And so essentially there are rules now around stock exclusion from streams, and whether that's through fencing, permanent fencing or temporary fencing. We will continue to support, we are proposing to continue support fencing, but only where the setback from the stream is enough to allow still some movement of that stream, because we also have seen a lot of fences lost over the years where they've put way too close to rivers and streams. So because of that, we received that feedback. We have specified in the plan minimum setbacks in order to be eligible for funding. And that we're essentially allowing rivers to move because we know they're going to move. We don't want to prevent that. That's going to happen over time. But suitable plantings and wide setbacks. But we won't fund anything that's required by regulation, which is 3 metres from the edge of the stream, essentially.
Thank you very much.
So we're happy to move on to that resolution.
Happy to move for you.
So Geneva moves, Shannon seconds. That's that the report update on Kāwhia Harbour Catchment Management Plan to Nehenehenui co-government's call for and be received. Okay.
Kia ora, Kerry. Thank you.
All in
Kia
favour?
ora. Thank you.
Hi, Kerry. Nice to see you, Kerry.
Nice to see you. See ya.
Okay.
And look, our last item is just a bit of an update on where we've landed with our long-term plan. And I thought I saw, I've got Jane. online. Hi, Jane. I was sort of hoping we could take it as read. I mean, there's quite a few pages there and we've sort of largely landed as we wanted it to, but have you got anything to sort of add, Jane? Oh, hang on, we can't hear you. Maria, you're on mute.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. I'm happy to take the report as read. Thank you.
Any questions for Jane on the final report in our agenda?
Is there anything in particular you think should be highlighted, Jane?
Yeah, so as
key points.
Councillor Kneebones commented, we are very close to the end of the LTP process. Council will adopt the LTP on the 25th of June. Key points and decisions that have come through that may be of interest to the committee. There's an increase to the natural heritage rate per property. So that will be an uplift of $5.80 to $15, which will enable the delivery of more on the ground restoration projects in the region. Yeah. Anything else to add, Councillor Kneebone?
I don't think so. That was sort of everything else was sort of in line with what we were proposing. That was the only one where we had a significant number of submissions and support, so hence we made that decision. And as I mentioned before, really useful if you're aware of potential projects that could benefit from that funding. Then, and our staff are really open, would like to help people through the application process as well. Kia ora, Jane. We're all good. Thank you.
Great.
The resolution with that?
There's just a resolution to receive the report. So Heather and Mover, Dale Marie and seconder Jamie, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
I
think that's us. Right?
That brings us to the end of our hui, does it?
Yep.
Aye.
No?
No.
Well, it did. Yeah,
It's the last one, isn't it?
yeah.
Oh, I'm just, Tremaine was just saying, that perhaps we could think about someone else hosting, one of the councils hosting our next hui.
Oh, my.
So you have to fight with,
Hey, quite the alternate.
Yeah.
Like,
You have to fight with that one.
Thanks. It can come down funny.
We'll have some conversations about that. If we could turn around.
Oh, hey, it's pie. Good for
Yeah.
We'll make magic.
For September and Tremaine can confirm whatever the conversation is. Kāwhia? All right, are we all happy to close? Righty-ho.
I'll get it.
Karakia tātou. Ko matara ki tērā karewe e te pai. Nā petu e tohu ana tauhau Māori, mātahi o te tau. Tapatū kia rangi e tū nei, tapatū kia papa e whakahuarangi. Tēnei tō mana ka purutia tangi tukura wiwini, tangi tukura waiwana. Ko te hautapu roa o pipiri koia nei te taumata ki te rangi. Tākiri te parakuru tapu o te hirikapo. Tā huhu rawa ko te kōwhaitanga o te rā. Kia ki ake rau. Mai e, he tipua. Mai e, he tauira mai rāno. Whāno, hara mai te tōki. Haumi e, hui e.
Thank you, everybody. I'm just back run away.
Hey.
This is my next.
Oh, you have anything okay with it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, is it now? I thought I'd pick one easy one.